tonight on 24. The United States says the Islamic Republic's work is done.
Iran cannot outlast us. We're going to ensure, through violence of action and our offensive capabilities and our defensive capabilities, as I said, that we set.
The U.S. Secretary of War says the Iranian government's work is over, and they know it themselves. He said more waves of attacks are on the way. Interception of Iran's missile attack on Turkey. Washington says regional countries might join the war. Europe also says Tehran's military actions against its neighbors have accelerated the collapse of the Islamic Republic.
It's on! It's on!
And the continuation of attacks on the Islamic Republic's security and military centers on the fifth day of the war. East and North Tehran and various parts of Iran targeted by U.S. and Israeli strikes.
Live from the Iran International Studio, this is 24, presented by Fardad Farahzad. This is a breaking news alert.
Viewers of Iran International in Iran and around the world, hello and good evening. Right at the start of the program, let's go straight to the White House. Carolyn Lloyd, the White House spokesperson, is speaking about Iran.
As for where the Ayatollah was going to be, that obviously had an impact on the timeline of the operation, but not quite the president's decision in its entirety.
And then on the way the public is viewing this, we were sitting here last week, I asked you if the president was going to make this a big part of the State of the Union, if he felt like he had to sell the possibility that he'd do strikes like this. We're now 5 days on. He hasn't done kind of the traditional speech to the nation part of it. Does the president believe the country supports the actions that he's taken so far in Iran?
I think he does, and I think the president knows the country is smart enough to read past many of the fake news headlines produced by people in this room that this action was
Unfortunately, our simultaneous translation is not yet available at this moment. As soon as the translation is established, I will take you back to the White House. However, simultaneously, on the fifth day of intense U.S. and Israeli attacks on various parts of Iran, the U.S. Secretary of War said an hour ago that the Islamic Republic's work is done, and the Iranian government itself knows this. It said the work of America's radical Islamist enemy is over, but Washington intends to send more forces to the region to strengthen its military. He said that in less than a week, complete control of Iran's skies will be in America's hands.
Iran's senior leaders are dead. This so-called assembly of experts, which was supposed to come and appoint a successor, they are either dead or missing, or they've hidden in underground bunkers, because they just don't dare to gather in a room together. When you also add Israel's defense forces, a capable and very destructive force, the combination of these two means complete destruction for our radical Islamist enemy. They are destroyed, and they themselves, they know it too. Their work is done, and they will know it very soon. Just as President Trump has made clear, significantly larger and more devastating waves of overwhelming air power are currently on the way. We are rapidly increasing the speed of our operations, certainly not decreasing it. Iran's defensive capabilities are evaporating hour by hour, while our forces are growing stronger and our dominance increases. Even more advanced fighter jets and bombers are arriving in the theater today, now possessing complete and total control of the skies. We will utilize 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound precision gravity bombs featuring GPS and laser guidance, drawing from reserves that are virtually unlimited.
Okay, our connection is re-established now. We can go to the White House and listen to Carolyn Lloyd's remarks with simultaneous translation.
We have explicitly categorized a number of high-risk countries as level 4, issuing strict travel advisories that emphatically stated do not travel to these specific destinations. On February 23rd, the United States Embassy in Lebanon officially advised that all non-emergency personnel should immediately leave the country, and we actively provided assistance to citizens facilitating their departure. Following this, on March 2nd, we executed another necessary evacuation operation for Lebanon. Regarding the situation in Iran, on February 27th, the Secretary of State formally declared Iran a dangerous country, warning that no American should travel there for any reason whatsoever. Again, on February 27th, the U.S. ambassador to Israel warned Americans to leave Iran, and again, we issued travel advisories through the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, so the State Department has been recommending maximum caution to Americans throughout the entire region all this time. But regarding Americans who are still in the region, the State Department again wants them to register on the State Department website so we can specifically identify you and actively arrange either charter flights for you. There are also some commercial flights that are, in any case, intermittently available. We will anyway help them come back for free, and we will announce new measures in the coming days. Again, I must reiterate, from the president's point of view, this is something he has directly raised with our allies and partners. We expect help from them to assist in bringing Americans back to the country, and we will not rest until we bring every single American back. Concerning the everyday experience of our citizens, especially in light of our current economic situation and the escalating cost of oil, are you prepared to immediately begin escorting vulnerable oil tankers moving through the strategic Strait of Hormuz? Furthermore, regarding Spain, an EU member state that has notably refused to cooperate with our efforts, what specific diplomatic consequences or repercussions will result from their lack of active support in this mission? It appears evident that Spain received the president's message quite clearly yesterday. In the hours since, the Spanish government has affirmatively agreed to cooperate fully with U.S. forces. At this moment, the U.S. military is actively coordinating operational details with their Spanish counterparts. Moreover, the president maintains a strong expectation that every one of our European allies will join this effort. This mission is essential for global security. It benefits not only Americans and Europeans, but the entire international community by effectively neutralizing the dangers posed by the rogue Iranian regime. Regarding the issue of domestic oil prices here in America, this naturally remains a top priority. A dedicated team, including the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Energy, Mr. Bissent, Mr. Wright, and the Energy Council, led by Secretary Burgum, is actively collaborating on necessary solutions. Yesterday, President Trump announced that the U.S. Development Finance Corporation will now provide funding for facilities to support oil tankers throughout the Gulf region. Additionally, to ensure security, should it become necessary, as you noted, the U.S. Navy stands fully prepared to escort these vessels as they travel along the vital shipping lanes of the Strait of Hormuz. One of the reasons we're showing how essential this issue is that ultimately, energy and energy companies will benefit from President Trump's decision that Iran will no longer control the Strait of Hormuz. It cannot restrict the passage of oil through this waterway, through which 20% of the world's oil passes. The president claimed yesterday that simply wasn't enough time to safely evacuate American citizens because events unfolded with such overwhelming speed. Yet, given the painful, lingering memory of our chaotic and messy withdrawal from Afghanistan, why was there not a much sharper focus on logistics? Why were comprehensive evacuation plans for the Middle East not drafted and fully prepared beforehand, poised to launch immediately before the specific operations began? Again, I repeat, there were plans, and the State Department very clearly told American citizens that if you want to travel to this region, do not travel to this region. We issued notices several times to leave these countries, and unlike the previous administration, we have the numbers of these. We have identified a number of individuals in the region. We have identified those who requested assistance, and we are in contact with them. Don't forget that the few thousand people who requested to leave are compared to the millions who are still in the region. So we will help any American who wants help if they make this request from the State Department.
Being told.
Okay, you are hearing parts of the remarks by Karine Lewitt, the White House spokesperson, at her press briefing from there. If she says any other important point about Iran, we will definitely take you back to Washington. In the past few minutes, news has also arrived from Iran that areas in Yazd were bombed by fighter jets, possibly either Israeli or American. Meanwhile, the Israeli army also announced an hour ago that it has concluded extensive operations against a large military complex of the Islamic Republic. According to the Israeli army, this complex included several headquarters belonging to security agencies. Our reporters, Samira Garai from our studio in Washington and Reza Mohates from Jerusalem are with us. Samira, give us an overall picture of everything that American officials, especially the Secretary of War and the White House, have said in the past 24 hours regarding the war situation in Iran.
The Pentagon held its second press conference after the war began. This morning at the Pentagon, Mr. Hexes and General Keane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States Armed Forces, briefed reporters on the latest developments and achievements of CENTCOM and the U.S. military forces. What was drawing attention in Mr. Hexes' remarks is that there will be no halt for now, and the process will not slow down either. Mr. Hexes says that we haven't yet carried out those bigger actions, those larger and grander plans that we have in mind. We will carry them out in the coming days. And he said that in less than a week, they will achieve air superiority in Iran's skies. General Keane, however, regarding the skies of southern Iran, said that in that area, they were able to achieve air superiority. And even before the attacks began, early Saturday morning, the United States tried. The military effort initially concentrated on the southern regions of Iran, specifically targeting areas suspected of hiding the launchers used to attack the Gulf monarchies, in order to contain the immediate threat. General Keane reports that this has now been accomplished, confirming they have secured total control of that specific airspace. With this foothold established, they now intend to advance significantly further into the heart of Iran, providing the capability to strike other critical locations deep inside the country using air power. Regarding the critical issue of launchers, the discussion about neutralizing missile launch systems is truly vital. It is widely argued that the more effectively forces can contain these platforms, the significantly lower the volume of the Islamic Republic's missile attacks will be, preventing them from using powerful ballistic missiles against Israel. General Keane asserts that they are currently on that successful path, noting that they have already managed to effectively contain a large number of these dangerous launchers. Regarding drones, it's a bit more difficult for launching drones, but General Keane again says in that regard that we've been able to achieve some things. They've reduced the number of drone launches by 70%, and overall what they're portraying is that, militarily speaking, the Islamic Republic's military command has collapsed.
است که به لحاظ نظامی فرماندهی نظامی جمهوری اسلامی فرو پاشیده.
And their operations and achievements have been very successful. The coordination with Israel is at the highest level, and it's rare in the world and in the history of world wars for two countries to be able to conduct operations so coordinated with each other. And these are the important points of Mr. Haxis's remarks. Regarding the Dena warship, Mr. Haxis also gave the news there. He said, they thought they were safe in international waters, but that's not the case. We hit them with a torpedo. It's the first time since World War II that the United States has taken such an action. And overall, there have been discussions in Congress about the Islamic Republic. And Mr. Lindsey Graham also wrote on social media that the discussion is about when they will fall. It's no longer about whether they will fall or not. It's about the timing. And Ms. Levitt, in these initial remarks she just made, said that what's happening to the Islamic Republic is the price they're paying for the crimes they've committed over these years.
Reza Samira mentioned that the Americans claim the number of Iran's attacks has sharply decreased in recent days. Can this also be felt on the ground there in Jerusalem, especially now that Israel is fighting on two fronts, both in Lebanon and in Iran? Let me, Fardad, sort of confirm Samira's remarks and give you a picture of what's happening here in Jerusalem. Compared to 2 days ago when we were talking together on this very program, today the number of warning sirens was higher. Starting at 6 a.m. local time this morning and continuing until right now as I speak with you, warning sirens have sounded 6 separate times throughout various regions of Israel, including here in Jerusalem. Yet the emerging picture indicates a specific trend. Current reports from the Israeli army suggest that the total number of missiles fired from the Islamic Republic toward Israel has actually been very, very low, despite the recurring alarms heard across the country today. I think, if I'm not mistaken, between 6 to 8 missiles were fired towards Israel. In addition, we also had rockets from Hezbollah, Lebanon, and in some of these instances, during some of these siren alerts, it was simultaneous with the Islamic Republic's missile barrage. Out of those 8 missiles fired towards Israel, some of them didn't even reach Israeli soil, and those that did reach Israeli soil were intercepted and destroyed by the Israeli army's air defense, and this confirms the remarks Samira made. And the Israeli war minister, the U.S. war minister, has also emphasized that. And the sign of it is that just now, as I was watching Channel 12 Israeli TV, many Israelis are on the streets celebrating Purim, and they're celebrating here in Jerusalem. And another sign is that El Al Airlines and also Ben Gurion Airport have announced that they are going to resume their incoming flights starting tonight, according to the schedule they announced yesterday. This includes flights that will in fact bring back passengers, those who are outside
inside Israel and got stranded in the first phase. Once conditions permit, passengers will be evacuated. Regarding the heavy bombing in East Tehran, the Israeli army stated that 100 fighter jets fired 250 bombs, destroying targets including the IRGC, intelligence, Basij, Quds Force, police, cyber warfare, and protest suppression headquarters. Speaking at intelligence headquarters, Israel Katz explained the operation was advanced from mid-2026, driven by new intelligence, January's protests, and U.S. coordination. The attacks on Iran are being carried out earlier than scheduled.
بمب رو به نقاط مختلف شرق تهران از جمله مقر سپاه پاسداران، مقر اداره اطلاعات، مقر بسیج، مقر نیروی قدس سپاه، یگان ویژه نیروی انتظامی، مقر جنگ سایبری و مقر واحد مسئول سرکوب اعتراضات شلیک کرده و اونها رو منهدم کرده. و در پایان هم به این نکته اشاره بکنم که اسرائیل کاتس به دفتر ستاد اطلاعات ارتش اسرائیل امروز رفته بود اونجا و اشاره کرد به این نکته که این عملیات قرار بود در میانه سال 2026 آغاز بشه، اما با توجه به اطلاعاتی که جمع آوری شده و با توجه به فرصتی که پیش اومده و همچنین وضعیت در ایران و با اشاره به اعتراضاتی که در طی دیماه داشتیم، به ویژه در 18 و 19 دیماه، با هماهنگی با ریاست جمهوری ایالات متحده آمریکا، این عملیاتی که داره الان در ایران انجام میشه به پیش افتاده و زودتر از موعد انجام شده.
Thank you to both of you, Reza Mohadas in Jerusalem and Samira Garai in Washington. Shahram Hosdi, a researcher of Middle East history and international relations from Ontario, has joined us. Mr. Holdi, the U.S. War Minister, says the Islamic Republic's work is done, and they know it themselves. I know that in war, bravado is, after all, part of the method of warfare, but the United States is usually not in a position to make unsupported boasts. In your opinion, has the Islamic Republic really reached its final moments?
I send my greetings to you, dear Mr. Farhad, and to the brave people of Iran. Yes, and what shows more than anything that the Islamic Republic has reached its final moments is their efforts for something that, well, especially the left-leaning newspapers in the United States refer to as the regionalization of the war, and that it's getting out of the hands of President Trump and his allies. These are the actions the Islamic Republic is taking, and also, in my opinion, the globalization of terror. As you accurately reported, sir, an alarming incident occurred just 2 days ago. The boxing club owned by Mr. Salar Gholami, a celebrated boxing champion of Iran and a courageous Kurdish man, was deliberately targeted. In my view, there is no plausible culprit besides the agents of the Islamic Republic behind this aggression. Furthermore, security officials have issued stern warnings to all of us residing here, urging us to pay significantly more attention to our personal safety protocols. Consequently, it seems evident that the Islamic Republic has attempted to exert political pressure by expanding its campaign of terror and conflict throughout the region. However, ultimately, they have failed to succeed in these malicious objectives. Another significant tactic they employed was raising energy prices across global markets, although I firmly believe this specific strategy is ultimately destined to fail, just like the others. Even more critical, however, is the realization that as the Islamic Republic descends into the depths of hell, it is determined to drag the nation of Iran down into that abyss with it. It seems their malicious goal is to ensure a post-regime Iran becomes utterly ungovernable. I remember vividly a conversation we shared during the peak of the Lion and Sun national revolution. You asked me then if the Islamic Republic was intentionally steering the country toward a chaotic state, similar to ISIS. And it seems to me that in these final moments, the Islamic Republic is desperately trying to continue its existence with an ISIS-like move, which, incidentally, I think will accelerate the collapse of the Islamic Republic.
Mr. Haldi, if this is really the case and we are on the verge of collapse, then the very big question now is what's next? It seems there are 4 options. Either, as Prince Reza Pahlavi and the U.S. President previously said, at some point ordinary people go and take over government headquarters. The how and what of that, how such a thing is even possible, is not clear at all. Second is that the Islamic Republic itself, in its final moments, hands over power to another group, relinquishes it. third is that the United States deploys ground military forces, which seems very unlikely. And the fourth is the role of other groups inside Iran, like these Kurdish groups, about whom there are whispers now that they might want to enter from western Iran. Which one do you think is more likely?
Well, I believe there is a significant excitation emerging now, particularly coming from various Kurdish political groups who have consistently maintained the argument that they define their distinct identity strictly within the national framework of Iran. If we analyze the regional situation, a primary reason why Erbil and Iraqi Kurdistan are facing such intense attacks right now, and indeed why Kuwait is also under fire, stems directly from logistics. Specifically, the critical supply lines originating in Kuwait are being sent north to assist Kurdish operations. In my opinion, this explains why the Islamic Republic has chosen to simultaneously target both Kuwaiti infrastructure and Erbil to disrupt this flow. Consequently, regarding the Kurds or any other paramilitary forces, independent action is simply not a viable option. They cannot and should not attempt to operate alone. This is fundamentally a complex issue of military strategy. Therefore, it is imperative that they avoid acting without strict coordination with American and Israeli forces. However, upon closely considering Ali Larijani's recent statements, the fact that the Kurds are actively stepping forward to defend their own ancestral land within Iran holds immense importance at this specific historical juncture. This decisive action serves to significantly strengthen the most vital element of national solidarity among the entire Iranian populace, even though some of their political leaders deliberately avoid utilizing the specific term national solidarity. Furthermore, a third crucial point involves the military forces currently inside Iran, particularly the regular army personnel. I am certainly not referring to their high-ranking commanders, however, because those individuals have tragically sold their souls to the demon of the Islamic Republic. But the army forces will eventually join the people, and in that final moment when we might see, perhaps, a brief pause in the attacks, I don't think this will happen sooner than the next 2 or 3 weeks. The people and the army and paramilitary forces like the Kurds, Lurs, and others. The people will finally pour out and once and for all roll out the scroll of this oppressive and bloodthirsty regime.
Thank you, Shahram Khaldi, researcher of Middle Eastern history and international relations. As mentioned, the U.S. Secretary of War held a press conference an hour ago regarding military attacks against Iran. Pitt said that the country is on the path to victory in the military campaign against the Islamic Republic, and the U.S. Army can continue the fight for as long as necessary.
Consider this analogy to a football team. I want to liken Iran's current precarious situation to a squad that has already burned through its starting lineup. The match has barely started, yet having lost their key players, they are paralyzed regarding which substitutes to deploy, simply because there are no reserves left on the bench. It is a complete structural collapse. Their essential communications, tactical coordination, and telecommunication systems are thoroughly disrupted. Practically speaking, they are defenseless, as Iran's air force effectively no longer exists to offer any protection or support during this ongoing crisis.
Destroyed in 2026.
A force originally constructed for the post-World War II era has now been effectively annihilated in 2026. Whether you label it as being decimated, destroyed, or definitively defeated, the result is the same. You choose the word yourself to describe this total collapse. It appears our president has effectively managed to destroy Qasem Soleimani not once, but twice.
Let me give you a quick update. In the past few minutes, it seems a wave of cyber attacks has occurred against some government media outlets. ISNA, ILNA, and some other media outlets have had their websites hacked. Iran's state television, IRIB, has also apparently been hacked, and a message from Prince Reza Pahlavi was being broadcast on TV. It's not clear if this hack was on local networks, satellites, their internet streaming service, or all of them. Naturally, we're monitoring it and we'll keep you updated. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan authorities say they have recovered the bodies of 87 crew members from the Iranian destroyer Dina, which was sunk by a U.S. submarine near the country's coast. According to Sri Lankan officials, efforts to find more crew members from the vessel are ongoing. The chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff also confirmed this news, stating that, according to him, a significant portion of Iran's navy has been neutralized.
امروز بیش از 2000 هدف رو زدیم. همونطور که ادمیرال کوپر در ویدیوش دیشب گفت ما بیش از 20 کشتی ایرانی رو نابود کردیم، افزون بر اون ناوچه‌ای که در اقیانوس هند زدیم، یک زیردریایی و در واقع عملاً حضور عمده دریایی ایران رو در این میدان جنگ نابود کردیم. برای اولین بار از 1945 یک زیردریایی آمریکا یک رزمناو دشمن رو با اژدر غرق کرده و او رو به قعر دریا فرستاده.
Meanwhile, the energy market analysis firm Kepler has also announced that oil tanker traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has decreased by 90% since the U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. According to some analysts, a number of ships are passing through the route by turning off their tracking systems. Joining us is Farzin Nadimi, Senior Research Fellow for Defense and Security Affairs at the Washington Institute. Mr. Nadimi, before turning to the Strait of Hormuz, how significant is the sinking of the Dina warship? To what extent has the war shifted from Iranian territory to the waters?
Well, it truly demonstrates the full and complete nature of the war that is currently underway. I really do not know if the Islamic Republic previously harbored even the slightest lingering doubt. This significant event should have definitively resolved that uncertainty. It is evident that all strategic efforts are squarely aimed at eliminating this Islamic government, and this relentless conflict will continue without pause until they finally succeed in that objective. And so, I honestly don't know, as it remains incredibly difficult for me to process these circumstances. Iran is being subjected to such severe air attacks, and its military forces are continuously being directly targeted. Yet, the Revolutionary Guard can still launch a number of missiles towards targets in the region. Even if these weapons prove effective and successfully hit their marks, such capabilities are inherently temporary. Ultimately, this resistance cannot last forever, and this too will have an end. Following that, what is their intended course of action? Should they wait until foreign ground forces actually arrive before the IRGC and besiege units move to engage them directly? Or would it be better to wait and implement a defense in-depth strategy, ultimately fostering a scenario resembling Iraq, characterized by prolonged guerrilla warfare and a violent insurgency? This is probably what they might have in mind, but anyway, the sinking of this frigate, the Dina, in Sri Lankan waters happens at a time when the United States has decided to completely eliminate the naval presence of Iran's navy, both the IRGC and the army. The United States has decided to completely eliminate the naval presence of Iran's navy, both the IRGC and the army, and we've seen them attack a number of these vessels in port, in Bandar Abbas, Konarak, and other places. We have observed them aggressively targeting a number of these vessels while they were docked in strategic ports, such as Bandar Abbas, Konarak, and several other locations. The Dina warship was also specifically singled out during this volatile period. Whether the vessel was still loitering in the region following a joint program, or was already en route back to Iranian territorial waters, remains somewhat unclear. Regardless, it was ultimately intercepted by an American submarine and destroyed by a fatal torpedo strike leading to its sinking. Several IRGC Navy warships were targeted, most notably the Saeed Shirazi. This modern catamaran corvette serves as a key missile launcher, carrying cruise missiles with a range of 700 to 800 kilometers. It is further equipped with anti-aircraft defenses and anti-ship missiles capable of reaching 300 kilometers. The vessel came under attack in the waters near Bandar Abbas. Current assessments suggest the warship is likely disabled, rather than sunk, due to the inherent stability and buoyancy of its twin-hull catamaran design. Such vessels are notoriously difficult to send to the ocean floor, resulting in incapacitation rather than total destruction. But something I haven't really heard much talk about yet are the IRGC Navy's gunboats and small missile boats, which are spread out in large numbers in the waters of the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Sea of Oman, in bases, some of which are underground, in tunnels that again, some of them are above ground, and some of them lead to water, meaning they are wet tunnels, so to speak. And these, well, if they are attacked, they will naturally try to react. I still haven't seen any reaction from the IRGC Navy other than these missile corvettes leaving port into international waters, and we'll have to see if these ongoing attacks against Iran's naval capabilities will include the IRGC's gunboats or not. Videos I haven't seen yet, but maybe they'll come up later. It seems that the focus right now is on larger, higher tonnage ships, and also that they potentially have the capability to pose a threat against the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group. And also missile launch facilities and coastal drones are being subjected to intermittent attacks. I also saw a report yesterday that some people probably suspect there might have been an attack with a drone or a cruise missile against one of the American missile destroyers in the Sea of Oman, off the coast of Oman, but I haven't seen any confirmation or satellite images about it yet.
Very, very briefly, Mr. Nadimi, what are the consequences of the partial closure of the Strait of Hormuz? The Islamic Republic had threatened this many times. Now the talk is that 90% of the traffic in the strait has decreased.
The strait is 90% narrowed, with very limited oil tankers passing through. I doubt the Islamic government needs to fully close it, as that would be propagandistically self-defeating. However, the significantly reduced traffic naturally has consequences. Meanwhile, regarding the 210 million barrels of Iranian oil stored on tankers in Asian waters, there remains a possibility that the United States could attempt to seize that oil and block its sale. It's on tankers in Asian waters. Anyway, there's a possibility that the United States might try to seize that oil and prevent its sale. Iran doesn't have the ability to export oil right now, and regional countries will eventually have to reduce their production because they don't have oil storage capacity, and well, that's the issue. The port of Corfacon, outside the Strait of Hormuz, is now full of the port of Fujairah is now full of ships that could potentially provide a suitable environment for the Islamic Republic to lay mines in the future.
Thank you, Farzin Nadimi, Senior Research Fellow for Defense and Security Affairs at the Washington Institute. Intense U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran's military and security sectors are continuing for the fifth day. According to reports, various locations, including military and security centers from Tehran, Al-Bor's industrial city in Kazvin, Isfahan, Karaj, Kermanshah, Sanandaj, Bane, Sardash, Shiraz, Tabriz, and Bushehr, were targets of these attacks.
You can see that it has absolutely nothing to do with residential areas. It only hit all around this building. I mean, it hit all around it. Smoke is also visible, but this building is either a university or an elementary school. Oh, it didn't say. So we see that they are innocent. This very video is proof of innocence.
Mr. Aquanian. Reza Aquanian, a journalist from Brussels, joined us. Mr. Aquanian, initially there were reports that maybe the intensity of the attacks was lower today, but it seems to have intensified again. There are now images, we'll try to show them during the program, of large explosions at the Basij Piruzi base in Tehran. What's happening in Iran right now? Yes. Hello, Fardad John. Yes, exactly as you mentioned. Well, today is the fifth day, and actually the attacks had somewhat decreased, you could say. In fact, on the first day, when, well, they targeted and killed Khamenei, you could say they carried out one of the heaviest attacks in 8 or 9 rounds, well, across Iran, especially Tehran. But after that, actually, yesterday, on the fourth day, in my opinion, since I was involved with the news and we were covering the reports, we had the heaviest attacks, well, both in terms of their intensity in Tehran and other cities, and also in terms of their widespread nature, actually, on the fourth day, meaning yesterday. But today, well, it has somewhat subsided, actually, this Wednesday morning. But, well, as you mentioned, the explosions actually started from Tehran in the morning. Reports were published, columns of smoke that we actually saw, videos that have been sent, the sound of fighter jets flying was heard from the morning, and even in various cities across the country, especially in Shiraz, Isfahan, Karaj, and Kermanshah. Well, these sounds of explosions were heard repeatedly, and in other cities, well, we also had explosions, some of whose names you yourself mentioned.
صدای انفجارها شنیده شد و شهرهای دیگه هم خب انفجارهایی رو داشتیم که اسامیشون رو بعضیشون رو خودت گفتی.
And actually, in the midst of this, Israel had also said, I read in one of these news reports, they were saying that in total, they've actually carried out over 1,000 airstrikes so far, and they've targeted and practically destroyed hundreds of missile launch platforms and many military and security targets, even, well, repressive institutions. Now, like many other examples, alongside Israel, well, the US had also announced We had reports, now like this attack on military and security centers in several cities. Even American commanders, well, they said in CENTCOM that they had actually established local air superiority in parts of southern Iran, and in a way, the possibility of expanding attacks, well, even into Iranian territory, for them to act in other ways, I think that exists too. Overall, a comprehensive assessment of the current landscape reveals that a military architecture of the Islamic Republic has been subjected to unprecedented pressure in recent days. For all practical purposes, their defensive shield has crumbled. The sky has effectively collapsed, meaning the regime no longer maintains valid control over its own airspace. Consequently, adversaries like Israel and the United States operate with apparent impunity inside Iran. Whether they decide to eliminate high-value commanders or dismantle the physical infrastructure of repressive institutions, they seem able to destroy these targets at will, clearly exposing deep security vulnerabilities. And the clashes, well, in a way, you could say, have entered a new phase, where practically day and night, actually, Iran's sky is in the hands of the US and Israel, and the Islamic Republic has become completely defenseless, meaning they're only hitting countries they can reach, and they themselves no longer have defensive power. And in Iran, well, practically they're only moving forward with lies and bluster and all that. We also know about the internet issue. Actually, this morning, we passed 100 hours. Now, I think we've passed 110 hours that the internet has been cut off. Also today, we had reports about prisons. Well, families had expressed concern, and we realized that right in the middle of actually all these news we were hearing about the war and attacks on Islamic Republic positions in Iran, well, families also had concerns raised for them, especially regarding the issue of
that best.
There have been alarming reports regarding the sound of explosions echoing from within the prison facilities. Furthermore, a critical issue has arisen wherein the Islamic Republic is systematically refusing to grant temporary leave or furlough to prisoners, effectively postponing their scheduled releases indefinitely. Authorities are remarkably rigid, refusing to authorize leave even for those inmates with very short durations remaining on their sentences, while also rejecting bail requests. Consequently, there are numerous agonizing problems that the families of these detainees are currently forced to navigate. However, looking at the overall situation, despite these distressing events, the conversations occurring on social media, often quoting families directly, suggest that these chaotic signs are actually evidence of serious destabilizing blows being dealt to the regime's power structure. This has actually created some fears and hopes in them regarding Iran's political future. But well, they're saying that the situation is moving towards a point where we need to wait and wait more. It is possible that significant events will finally unfold in Iran, effectively paving the way for genuine freedom and liberty.
Thank you. Reza Akwanian, journalist, joining us from Brussels. As I mentioned earlier, large explosions have been reported at the Basij base on Piruzi Street in Tehran. We have obtained video footage of that incident now. Let us go ahead and watch it together. The images you were seeing were related to the massive explosions at the Basij base on Piruzi Street in Iran's capital, Tehran. Washington says that in response to the recent attacks by the Islamic Republic on countries in the region, perhaps the Arab countries of the Persian Gulf might join a military campaign against the Islamic Republic. It said the countries in the region are in contact with the U.S. at various levels, whether in the form of offensive action they are currently undertaking, or by providing more access for military bases and air transit permits. Meanwhile, Turkey's Ministry of Defense says a ballistic missile fired from Iran, which was moving towards Turkish airspace, was destroyed by NATO air defense systems in the eastern Mediterranean. Ankara stated that no casualties or injuries were reported in this incident, and the country reserves its right to respond to any hostile action against it. Ali Sadzadeh, Middle East affairs analyst from Frankfurt, has joined us. Mr. Sadzadeh, it seems that the patience of the Persian Gulf countries is running out. Now, practically, the number of attacks they are carrying out against the United Arab Emirates is, in some cases, even more than against Israel. And practically, it's true they haven't hit the target, but they've also violated the airspace of a NATO member country.
Apparently, this is the definitive strategy they have decided to pursue. This specific strategic choice is driven by several distinct underlying reasons. The primary factor appears to be that militarily, they no longer possess the capability to effectively deploy long-range missiles. Consequently, targeting nations on the opposite side of the Persian Gulf presents fewer logistical challenges regarding distance. This proximity explains why they are resorting to these actions, at least when viewed strictly from a tactical military perspective. Politically speaking, they operate under the strong belief that by executing these specific attacks, they are actively fulfilling the strategic vision consistently articulated by Ali Khamenei, specifically his frequent declaration that they intend to fully regionalize the war. Furthermore, from a tactical standpoint, they calculate that the patience of neighboring governments will eventually be exhausted. They assume that while these nations will likely refrain from entering a direct military confrontation with the Islamic Republic, they will instead pressure the United States to halt hostilities, reasoning that the severe economic destabilization of major hubs like the UAE will ultimately force immediate action. The United Arab Emirates has effectively shut. Its massive airport hubs are quiet. The vital tourism industry has collapsed, and trade has ground to a halt. This isolation is devastating because maintaining strong connections with the outside world is absolutely critical for the UAE's survival. At this very moment, Germany has been forced to organize emergency repatriation flights to evacuate stranded German tourists out of Dubai, gathering people arriving from neighboring nations like Oman, Kuwait, and Bahrain. This leads to their second major calculation, the assumption that they can successfully apply pressure on the United States. However, they seem unaware that Donald Trump has significant personal stakes here, even setting aside political aspects completely. It is well known that the Trump family possesses substantial financial investments and business interests throughout countries in this specific region. Consequently, if we also take into account the distinct personal and political interests of Donald Trump and his immediate family, it becomes inevitable that he will feel compelled to address these pressing issues directly. Furthermore, the final and perhaps most critical point is that, apparently, China's patience has completely evaporated. Beijing has explicitly stated that energy exports flowing from the Persian Gulf must continue freely without interference. Crucially, this concern is not primarily about Iranian oil, but rather the vital supplies of Saudi Arabian crude and Qatari natural gas. Since China imports significantly larger volumes from these nations than from Iran, their economic stability is at risk. Given this intense geopolitical pressure, I do not believe the Islamic Republic can sustain this disruptive policy for a significantly longer period.
Practically, the Islamic Republic isn't just attacking Israel and America, but the entire world by targeting energy corridors. This attack on Turkey has drawn significant attention. How likely is a large international coalition forming, or even NATO's Article 5 being activated?
قد محتمل میدونید تشکیل یک ائتلاف بین‌المللی بزرگ و یا حتی فراتر از اون فعال شدن ماده 5 ناتو.
I really do not believe that is the case, primarily because there is still so much activity occurring on the ground. In reality, both Israel and the United States are actively engaged in all these ongoing maneuvers. Israel appears completely determined to obliterate the remaining infrastructure, leading some analysts to suggest that Israel actually hopes Trump does not end the war too quickly. The reasoning is that if Trump forces a rapid conclusion, Israel will be compelled to halt its operations immediately, much like what happened during the 12-Day War. Consequently, they want the conflict to persist so they can finish their military objectives. Israel's attacks have become significantly more devastating, combining overwhelming destructive power with incredibly precise targeting capabilities. Meaning, it implies the nation possesses incredibly precise on-the-ground intelligence from Mossad operatives, ensuring they know exactly where to launch strikes. This specific capability explains why they remain willing to act, especially since there are significant disagreements between America and Israel regarding the future roadmap for Iran. Furthermore, it is apparently in Israel's perceived strategic interest for the war to continue, while Trump appears notably reluctant to support continuing the military engagement for much longer.
Thank you, Ali Sadzadeh, Middle East analyst from Frankfurt. Lindsey Graham says that currently the issue isn't whether Iran's, as he calls it, terrorist regime will fall or not. Rather, according to this Republican senator, it's only a matter of time. Meanwhile, Senator Margwain Mullen also said in an interview with our reporter Marzia Hosseini that after these attacks, it's the turn of the Iranian people to, as he says, take back their country.
This is your time.
Now it's your turn. It's your turn now. This is your country. You have an amazing country. We are not at war with you. We really like you. You have this opportunity to return to the same country you had before. We also want a relationship with you. We really wish for that relationship. The same relationship we had before 1979. But the decision is yours. Now it's your turn. This time it's on your shoulders to take back your country.
Meanwhile, in response to the war in the region, the European Union, at the meeting of the IAEA Board of Governors, expressed concern over these developments, calling Iran's attacks and violation of regional countries' sovereignty unjustifiable, and called for restraint, protection of civilians, and respect for international regulations. My colleagues Marzia Hosseini from the US Congress and Nilufar Pour Ibrahim from Vienna are with us. Nilufar, tell us more about the current approach of the Europeans. Practically, even their soil has been attacked.
Yes, they are very concerned. And we can say that even though they didn't participate in the attacks against the Islamic Republic, if we don't say they're more involved than the surrounding countries, their involvement is certainly not less. Specifically, all the activities that, for example, I am observing and seeing in France are centered around what is happening in the Middle East. The meetings and discussions they are holding, from the French foreign minister, who is in continuous contact with his counterparts, to the defense minister, who just an hour ago announced that they had meetings with the foreign ministers of 5 countries. He announced this to help the countries of the region and also for cooperation with each other to help the European Union. The defense minister says they held a joint meeting with the defense ministers of Britain, Germany, France, Poland, and Italy. These are the countries that seem to be providing the most assistance to the countries of the region at this stage for tracking and sometimes even destroying the drones and missiles of the Islamic Republic, up to the French president himself, who just minutes ago announced in a tweet that he had discussions with the leaders of Lebanon and Israel, talked about the situation, and is very concerned. If we examine the rising level of concern, it becomes evident in forums like the Board of Governors. While their primary job today was to review Iran's nuclear situation, more than half of the European Union's statement focuses intensely on current hostilities. Consequently, we should expect a situation to become significantly tougher for these nations in the coming days. The reality is that there is a growing chance they will be compelled to provide substantially more aid and potentially become far more deeply involved in this war than the limited participation we are currently seeing. This specific prospect of unavoidable escalation is effectively one of the core factors that is driving their deep apprehension right now.
Marzia, we aired an interview you did with Senator Mullen. In Congress, too, it seems that even though, there are dissenting voices, especially from the Democrats, at least criticizing the way the war is being handled, but everyone is more or less coming to believe that the Islamic Republic's days are numbered.
Fardad, even more importantly than that, these are, with absolutely no exaggeration, historic and decisive moments for the American people and the people of Iran. Right now, there is only about an hour left until the critical vote on the war bill commences. Democrats are currently claiming this war is a conflict that would become the 3rd largest war in modern American history. Furthermore, they are saying they think it is highly likely that American soldiers will probably also enter Iranian territory. Because of that distinct risk, they are urgently trying to pass a bill, a binding resolution, within the next hour to intervene. Pass it, which would actually limit all of Trump's war powers and stop this very war right here. Although, over the past few days in these halls of Congress, I saw Miss Susie Wiles here in Congress today. Mr. Trump's chief of staff had personally come here. We see Mr. Hegseth has come, Mr. Marco Rubio has come, and this shows the extensive lobbying by Mr. Trump's team. Before this, it was to prevent this vote from happening, and now that the vote has happened, it's to prevent the bill and resolution from passing so far. But I spoke with 3 key Republican senators, Mr. Lindsey Graham, Senator Fetterman, and Mr. Mullen. These are the people who have been spearheading this war over the past few weeks, and now, I noticed one thing. They have a common narrative. It's very clear. First off, they're saying this isn't a war, it's a military attack, and it's also not a military attack for regime change. They're telling this to the American people. On the other hand, in their interviews with me, and for the message they're sending to the people in Iran, they're bringing up something else. But Mr. Lindsey Graham emphasized in his interview with me yesterday and said he spoke with the Arab countries in the region just today, and the Arab countries told him that if the Islamic Republic collapses, it will be a spring in the Middle East, especially in line with normalizing relations between Israel and the Arab countries in the region. And today, Mr. Graham also said the issue of collapse is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. Let's see how long it takes. And he said, I spoke with Netanyahu just today. Netanyahu is telling me that the regime's collapse is inevitable. I asked Senator Fetterman, right after he had come out of that confidential meeting, I asked him, are these attacks for regime change? It clearly slipped out of his mouth. Now, you'll see the video in a moment. And he said, it seems like it's part of the operation. Then he corrected himself and said, well, a lot of clerics and leaders have been killed. Watch this interview.
Well, I assumed that this operation was specifically part of the grander plan aimed at forcing total regime change. It appears they eliminated 55 of their top leaders, and I believe they also bombed around 80 random clerics in the process, which, honestly speaking, I thought was actually really cool.
Over the past few days, this extensive campaign has been here. But let me get back to this bill that's supposed to be approved in about an hour and a half. I sat down and calculated today and saw that the Democrats are 47 people. They need at least 50 votes to pass this bill. Mr. Fetterman from the Democratic Party, we know he stepped aside, meaning they need 5 votes. Who will these 5 people be? They were counting on the help of 3 Republicans who were in favor of limiting Trump's war powers regarding Venezuela. But now they back out. They say Trump should have the authority to continue attacks on the Islamic Republic. As a result, the likelihood of this bill passing will be close to 0. But a point that was brought up yesterday, this very Mr. Blumenthal, when he exited that confidential meeting, he said, I feel or I'm concerned that American soldiers will be drawn into the region. We know that regarding the timing of this war, we're also hearing conflicting statements. Mr. Trump was talking about 14 weeks. Now today, Mr. Hegseth is talking about the possibility of the war lasting 8 weeks. What I'm hearing here from senators, especially Democrats who are against this process, is that they say we are preparing for a long war, and Mr. Trump's cabinet is like gradually and slowly justifying this issue to us. But Lindsey Graham's statements regarding the talks he's having with regional countries are also important. We know just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he was sitting next to Mr. bin Salman, and now he's talking about how eager the Arab countries in the region are for the Islamic Republic not to exist, despite the fact that in their public statements, they don't speak clearly or in fact transparently about this issue. But what I generally see here in Congress are Democrats who are unable, even if they wanted to actually limit Trump's authority, and Republicans who are intensely working towards this.
Thank you, Marzia Husseini in Congress and Niloufarpur Ibrahim in Vienna, Austria. You saw with us earlier in the program, before the end of the program, White House spokesperson Karen Lloyd was speaking and said the Islamic Republic is completely falling apart. Let's listen to parts of her remarks together.
Under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump,
Under the leadership of Donald Trump, Iran's rogue terrorist regime is being completely shattered. 47 years of tolerance and appeasement with the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism has come to an end. Iran's terrorist and murderous leaders will pay the price for their crimes against America, and they will pay this price with their own blood. After years of endless appeasement and hollow statements from politicians of both parties, President Trump is finally a man of action. He holds these monsters accountable and silences their nuclear ambitions forever. Future generations of America will look back at this moment as the time when the shadow of a nuclear-armed Iran ended.
where the specter of a nuclear-armed Iran ended.
Before the end of the program, let me tell you that Iran sent a message to Donald Trump through regional countries, but the U.S. has not responded. An American official in an interview with Axios said, and I quote, "We consider these messages nonsense. Therefore, it seems that in these sensitive and perhaps final moments for the Islamic Republic, the country's officials are trying to get in touch with the White House." Karlene Levy, in another part of her speech that we didn't cover, also spoke about the Minap school and said that, unlike what she called Iran's child-killing regime, we do not target civilians. Iran International's special coverage of the war involving Israel and the United States against the Islamic Republic will also continue in the coming hours. Thank you for watching tonight's 24 program. You can watch this program again on YouTube a little later.